me donc parle. Bienvenue aux 20h. Jusqu'à quand? Camto dans le MXC redonne donc le dernier seconde pour que
Qu'est-ce qui va donc se passer en Afrique? Nous sommes avec vous,
bienvenue sur cette émission.
Bonsoir à tous et bienvenue pour cette émission.
Camto le MXC et Anissé
Ok, c'est bon.
Mesdames, messieurs, chers fidèles spectateurs d'Actu Cameroun Live, accrochez vos ceintures car l'actualité que nous allons décortiquer aujourd'hui est tout simplement explosive. Imaginez un parti politique, autrefois présenté comme l'espoir de toute une nation, qui se retrouve en plein cœur d'un séisme interne. Des militants en colère, des résolutions contradictoires, des accusations de manipulation. Et, au milieu de ce chaos, deux figures qui s'affrontent dans l'ombre. D'un côté Maurice Kamto, le fondateur charismatique, et de l'autre, Mamadou Mota, l'intérimaire ambitieux. Une véritable guerre de leadership qui risque d'enterrer l'avenir du mouvement pour la renaissance du Cameroun. Notre grand titre du jour. Implosion au MRC. Kamto renversé, Mota prend le pouvoir. Un scénario digne d'une série politique, sauf qu'ici, ce n'est pas de la fiction, c'est la réalité. Et c'est en train de se passer sous nos yeux, à quelques semaines seulement de l'élection présidentielle de 2025. Alors restez bien avec nous, car dans cette vidéo nous allons plonger au cœur de la crise qui secoue le MRC. Comment un conseil national s'est transformé en théâtre d'ombre? Pourquoi les militants parlent de trahison et de manipulation? Et surtout, quelles conséquences cela peut avoir pour l'avenir politique du Cameroun? Vous le savez, ici, sur Actu Cameroun Live, nous ne faisons pas que relayer l'information, nous la décortiquons, nous l'analysons, et parfois, nous la piquons d'une touche de satire pour mieux faire ressortir l'absurdité de certaines situations. Car au pays de l'impossible politique, il faut parfois rire pour ne pas pleurer. Mais avant de plonger dans ce dossier brûlant, prenez juste une seconde pour cliquer sur j'aime afin que cette vidéo soit vue par le plus grand nombre, abonnez-vous si ce n'est pas encore fait, et surtout, activez la cloche de notification pour rester connecté à toutes nos exclusivités. Avec nous, l'actualité ne dort jamais, et vous êtes toujours au cœur de l'information. Maintenant que tout est prêt, entrons ensemble dans les coulisses d'un parti au bord de l'implosion. Partie 1. Mesdames, messieurs, chers compatriotes d'Actu Cameroun Live, bienvenue dans votre rendez-vous où l'actualité brûlante se déguste avec un peu de piment, et parfois même avec du enjancement politique pour relever le goût. Aujourd'hui, on va parler du MRC, ce parti qui, il n'y a pas si longtemps encore, était présenté comme le grand espoir de l'opposition camerounaise. Mais au lieu de préparer calmement les élections qui approchent à grands pas, eh bien, le parti ressemble désormais à un taxi de Yaoundé. Ça démarre, ça cale, ça redémarre, et à la fin, tout le monde s'énerve sur le chauffeur. Au menu du jour, des militants en feu, des dirigeants accusés de trahison, des résolutions contradictoires comme les prix du marché Mokolo, et une guerre de leadership qui fait penser à une série ivoirienne. Sauf que cette fois, ce n'est pas dans une fiction, c'est bel et bien chez nous, au Cameroun. Le titre du jour est clair. Implosion au MRC. Kamto renversé, Mota prend le pouvoir. Rien que ça. Et je vous préviens, ce n'est pas un épisode de l'Afrique à un incroyable talent. Non, c'est la vraie politique camerounaise, avec ses coups bas, ses petites manigances, ses gros bonnets qui tirent les ficelles dans l'ombre, et ses militants de base, fatigués mais toujours debout, qui regardent ce spectacle avec les bras croisés, se demandant, vraiment, c'est pour ça qu'on a souffert 12 ans. Alors, restez bien scotchés jusqu'au bout de cette vidéo, parce que ce que vous allez entendre va vous étonner. Oui, étonné comme quand tu découvres qu'un député a dormi pendant tout un débat à l'Assemblée. Ici à Actu Cameroun Live, on ne vient pas seulement raconter ce qui se passe, non. On décortique, on met du poivre, on met du sel, et parfois on balance une petite dose de satire. Parce que franchement, au Cameroun, si tu veux survivre à la politique sans perdre tes cheveux, tu dois apprendre à rire un peu. Mais avant d'entrer dans le vif du sujet, mes chers amis, faites-nous un petit geste. Cliquez sur j'aime, abonnez-vous si vous êtes nouveau, et activez la cloche pour ne rien rater de nos prochains décryptages. Parce qu'ici, l'actualité ne dort jamais, et avec nous, vous avez toujours la vérité servie chaude, même quand elle brûle la langue. Voilà, le décor est planté. Maintenant, mettons les pieds dans la marmite bouillante du MRC. Partie 2. Normalement, mes chers compatriotes, un conseil national d'un parti politique, c'est un moment solennel. C'est un peu comme la veillée d'un mariage traditionnel. Tout le monde est sérieux, on discute de la dot, on fixe les règles, et à la fin, chacun sait ce qu'il doit faire. Mais au MRC, ce dernier conseil national, c'était tout sauf ça. Non, c'était plutôt comme une réunion de famille où l'on se dispute l'héritage avant même que le grand-père ne ferme les yeux. Sur le papier, tout était clair, rassembler les délégués, écouter la base, et décider enfin si le parti allait participer à la présidentielle d'octobre 2025. Les militants étaient venus de partout du septentrion, du littoral, de l'ouest avec une seule idée en tête, tourner la page du boycott. Eux-mêmes l'ont dit, boycotter encore, c'est comme laisser son champ en jachère alors que la saison des pluies est déjà là. Les débats étaient passionnés, ça parlait fort, ça gesticulait, bref, on sentait que la salle était en ébullition. Mais, comme au marché de Mokolo, pendant que les uns discutent du prix du manioc, d'autres ont déjà glissé la main dans le sac. Car pendant que les délégués s'échauffaient, une petite clique, bien installée dans l'ombre, avait déjà préparé son propre document. Et oui, mes chers amis, comme une soupe qui est déjà au feu avant même que les invités n'arrivent. Et tenez-vous bien, ce fameux texte, publié nuitamment par le président par intérim Mamadou Mota, contredisait carrément l'esprit des débats. Comme si deux conseils nationaux avaient eu lieu le même jour, un vrai, avec les militants, et un autre imaginaire, rédigé dans un bureau climatisé, loin des cris de la base. Résultat ? Un véritable théâtre politique. Les uns crient à la manipulation, les autres jurent que tout était prévu depuis le départ. On parle même de forfaiture politique. Bref, le Conseil national du MRC s'est transformé en comédie satirique. Chacun lit son scénario, mais personne ne suit la pièce. Imaginez un peu la scène. Les militants sortent de la salle convaincus d'avoir choisi le chemin de la participation aux élections, et au petit matin, paf ! Un communiqué tombe, qui dit exactement le contraire. Comme si tu étais allé à une réunion de tontine, tu paies ta part, on t'assure que ton tour est bientôt arrivé. Et le lendemain, tu apprends que ton argent est déjà parti acheter une moto pour le cousin du président de la tontine. Voilà comment un moment qui devait unir le parti a fini par l'exploser encore plus. À croire que le MRC est devenu expert dans l'art de se tirer une balle dans le pied, et de viser juste à chaque fois. Bref, mesdames et messieurs, ce Conseil national restera dans les annales comme l'un des plus confus de l'histoire politique camerounaise. 2 résolutions, 2 vérités, et au final, une seule réalité, la division. Partie 3. À mes chers spectateurs, accrochez vos ceintures parce que là, on entre dans le ring politique du MRC. Oui, un vrai combat de catch, sauf que cette fois, ce n'est pas au Palais des Sports, c'est dans les coulisses du parti. D'un côté du ring, Maurice Kamto, le professeur, le stratège, le champion incontesté de l'opposition depuis 2018. De l'autre côté, Mamadou Mota, le vice-président par intérim, qui depuis quelque temps, joue les gladiateurs et semble décidé à se tailler une place au soleil. Même si ça veut dire pousser son patron dans l'ombre. Et croyez-moi, le public n'est pas déçu. Parce que ce duel ressemble à une bagarre de quartier à Eli Gedzoa. Tout le monde crie, personne ne recule, et les voisins filment déjà avec leur téléphone pour poster ça sur WhatsApp. Kamto, lui, continue de jouer son rôle de vrai président du parti, refusant de céder un seul pouce du terrain. Pour lui, Mota reste un intérimaire, un gardien de but remplaçant qu'on a mis dans les cages le temps que le titulaire se change. Mais problème, Mota lui, ne veut plus sortir du terrain. Il a goûté à la lumière, et il dit « Pourquoi pas moi ?» Et là, mes frères, le match devient sérieux. Les supporters de Kamto accusent Mota d'avoir trahi la ligne du parti, d'avoir publié un faux communiqué, bref, d'avoir fait un dribble politique qui rappelle les vieux coups de théâtre de la politique camerounaise. Pendant ce temps, les fans de Mota, eux, le présentent comme le sauveur, celui qui ose dire ce que Kamto n'ose plus. Résultat ? On se retrouve avec 2 camps bien tranchés, les kantoïstes et les motatistes. Une vraie guerre froide interne, où chacun jette des pics plus vite qu'un vendeur de beignets au carrefour Mbopi. Imaginez un peu, Kamto accuse Mota de vouloir voler le parti. Mota répond que Kamto est devenu sourd à la base. Bref, c'est le genre de débat qui fait passer les matchs canon coton pour des jeux d'enfants. Et comme dans tout bon clash camerounais, chacun promet de révéler les vrais dossiers si ça continue. Vous voyez déjà la suite. Si on ouvre vraiment les placards du MRC, on risque de trouver des squelettes mieux rangés que dans les hôpitaux. Mais attention, cette guerre-là n'est pas juste un problème d'ego. Non, c'est une bataille pour 2025. Chacun veut incarner le visage de l'opposition. Et croyez-moi, avec les élections qui arrivent, ce duel Kamto-Mota, c'est comme une marmite de ndolé sur le feu. Si tu ne surveilles pas bien, ça déborde et tout le quartier sait que tu as raté la cuisson. Bref, ce 3e round au MRC est peut-être le plus décisif. Qui sortira vainqueur ? Kamto, le professeur qui refuse d'abdiquer ? Ou Mota, l'intérimaire rebelle qui veut transformer son essai en but ? Suspense, mes chers amis, suspense. Partie 4. Mes chers spectateurs, après le clash Kamto-Mota, laissez-moi vous dire que le MRC ressemble maintenant à une tontine de quartier qui a mal tourné. Vous savez, ce genre de réunion où chacun promet de cotiser chaque mois, mais le jour de la collecte, on découvre que certains ont disparu avec l'argent, d'autres refusent de payer, et le président de séance, lui, essaie de calmer les esprits en criant « Restons calmes, ce sont nos frères ». Eh bien, c'est exactement ce qui se passe dans ce parti. Parce qu'au lieu d'avancer tous ensemble, les militants sont désormais divisés en clans. D'un côté, les fidèles de Kanto, qui jurent que sans leur professeur, le parti n'est qu'un bateau sans capitaine. De l'autre, les partisans de Mota, qui répondent « Professeur ou pas, nous on veut un parti qui bouge ». Résultat, ça se dispute, ça s'insulte, ça fait même des communiqués parallèles, chacun voulant montrer qu'il est le vrai propriétaire de la maison. Et comme toujours chez nous, quand les grands s'affrontent, ce sont les petits qui souffrent. Les militants de base, eux, se sentent comme des enfants au milieu d'un divorce. Ils ne savent plus chez qui rester. Certains disent « Moi je vais rester avec papa Kanto ». D'autres « Non, maman Mota nous nourrit mieux ». Pendant ce temps, la maison brûle. La conséquence directe, mes frères, c'est que le MRC, au lieu d'être un bloc solide pour affronter 2025, est en train de devenir une maison fissurée où chaque pluie risque d'emporter la toiture. Les adversaires politiques, eux, regardent tout ça comme on regarde un match gratuit au stade. Popcorn à la main, sourire aux lèvres. Parce qu'ils savent qu'un parti divisé, c'est un parti affaibli. Et comme si ça ne suffisait pas, il y a aussi le problème des investitures qui pointent à l'horizon pour les municipales et législatives de 2026. Certains militants disent déjà qu'ils n'accepteront aucune candidature parachutée venue d'en haut. Traduction, fini les nominations façon fils du chef. Désormais, si tu veux te présenter, tu dois avoir l'appui de la base. Sinon, c'est rejeté comme un plat de condré mal assaisonné. Mais mes chers amis, le plus grave, c'est l'ambiance. Le MRC d'avant, c'était l'espoir, l'unité, la promesse d'un changement. Aujourd'hui, c'est devenu un champ de bataille où chaque camp se croit plus intelligent que l'autre. Comme disait un vieux sage de Mokolo, quand deux coqs se battent, c'est toujours le grain de maïs qui disparaît. Ici, le grain de maïs, c'est l'avenir du parti, et peut-être même de l'opposition camerounaise. En clair, les divisions internes ne sont plus de simples querelles de famille. Non, c'est devenu une véritable hémorragie politique. Et si ça continue, le MRC risque de se réveiller un matin comme une voiture sans carburant. Le moteur est là, les roues sont là, mais impossible d'avancer. Mes chers spectateurs, vous l'avez vu vous-même, le MRC aujourd'hui, c'est comme un taxi de Yaoundé en pleine heure de pointe. Tout le monde veut être devant avec le chauffeur, personne ne veut rester coincé derrière avec les genoux pliés. Et au final, c'est la circulation qui est bloquée. Kanto et Mota, au lieu de jouer ensemble comme deux attaquants d'un même club, passent leur temps à se tacler entre eux. Résultat, le ballon politique reste au milieu du terrain, et l'adversaire en face, lui, attend patiemment pour marquer un but facile. Avouez que c'est ironique, un parti qui est né pour unir les Camerounais est aujourd'hui en train de se casser lui-même comme une noix de coco mal fendue. Mais attention hein. Dans ce Cameroun où la politique est souvent une pièce de théâtre sans fin, rien n'est jamais écrit d'avance. Peut-être que Kanto et Mota finiront par s'asseoir autour d'un bon plat de ndolé pour enterrer la hache de guerre. Ou alors, chacun va continuer son chemin, et le MRC deviendra une légende, celle d'un parti qui avait tout pour réussir, mais qui a trébuché sur ses propres querelles de famille. Mes frères, mes sœurs, à ce stade, la vraie question n'est plus seulement qui dirige le MRC, mais plutôt, le MRC peut-il encore sauver son avenir ou est-ce déjà trop tard? Est-ce que le parti a encore la force de rassembler, ou va-t-il finir comme ces vieux véhicules de transport en commun? Peinture neuve dehors, mais moteur complètement fatigué dedans? C'est à vous de juger, chers spectateurs. Que pensez-vous de cette crise? Est-ce que Maurice Kanto doit reprendre les rênes tout de suite, ou laisser Mamadou Mota finir sa mission? Et surtout, est-ce que ce parti a encore une chance d'être l'alternative crédible en 2025? Dites-le nous en commentaire, parce que vos avis comptent. Et surtout, n'oubliez pas de liker cette vidéo pour que tout le monde entende cette histoire qui fait trembler la scène politique camerounaise. Abonnez-vous à Actu Cameroun Live, et activez la cloche de notification pour ne jamais rater nos prochains reportages. Ici, on vous sert l'actualité chaude, croustillante, avec un petit piment satirique made in Cameroun. Allez, mes chers amis, c'était votre humble serviteur. À la prochaine édition, et surtout, gardez vos oreilles bien ouvertes. Au Cameroun, l'actualité ne dort jamais.
The second area is the gender issue. Cameroon is made of more than 50% of female, and it is important if we're going to refound Cameroon will give a new foundation of Cameroon that we give to the women of Cameroon the proper place that they deserve, and then, you know, remove all obstacle to their development and their happiness. And of course, it's important to put in place national health insurance, because it is unacceptable that in 2025 a Cameroonian will die because he was not able to buy antibiotics or anything, you know, or something like that. Putting in place a national health insurance is the simplest thing that can ever happen in the country. So this transitional government will have to give that to the Cameroonian people. Last but not least is the unemployment of youth. There again, maybe in 3-5 years they may not solve the entire problem, but definitely by putting a strong priority on professional training, they will be able to prepare these young people to be more able to intervene in the economy in a better place, either as an employee or as an entrepreneur.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Jumer Giles watching you live from Wotutu in Limbe. So as we speak, you are already talking with the guys who have agreed. How many persons have agreed to this scheme?
So far, we have 3 people that have strongly agreed. But we continue to, and then we have 4 people that have strongly disagreed.
Okay.
So now you make the math, and then so that means that we still have about 4 people that we are talking to.
You're talking to, yes. How involved are those who were not selected who were rejected by ELECAM and by the constitution? Very
involved. And then that's what we did. That was very important, is that we involved the people that were not selected by bringing to their attention. That is not because you're not selected by the Constitutional Council that you cannot participate to the vote. And a lot of people that were selected, that were not selected by the Constitutional Council, Maurice Kamto is one of them, and then all the members of UPC are organizations that have strong followings. You know, so we went to them, and then we told them, no, don't give up. You know, you may not be the candidate, but you can still strongly participate in change. You know, change does not necessarily mean that the change is done in your personal favor. We saw a very good example in Senegal, where President Macky Sall did everything for Sonko not to run, but Sonko was selfless enough to say, yes, I may not be able to run. I've received fake obstacles, you know, to stop me from running, but I'll pass the baton to Faye, so that he will run in the name of the people, and then he was able to win. So I think that the people that were not retained will play a fundamental role, and then all of them have responded very favorably to this coalition.
Okay. To find Timothy watching from Ekono Titi, getting a consensual candidate of the coalition is also important, but do they really pull any political weight? Because that is also a worry by Cameroonians that if you were to bring opposition parties without a real political basis across the 10 region, does it really matter?
I will respond at two levels. Number one, if last time I was here, I showed you scientific studies that were made of the 5 past elections. Okay. That showed, let's say, about 3 things. Number one was that abstention was the biggest enemy to change, because it was the only thing growing. The number 2 thing was that CPDM was diminishing and stagnating somewhere between 2.5 million and 3 million. And then, you know, so if you have 8 million voters now, it shows that mathematically it's easy to beat CPDM, particularly given the fact that the Bello Buba and Issa Churuma have broken the alliance that have allowed CPDM to win systematically since 1997. The third thing that is also very important that came out of that scientific study is that the vote of the North is absolutely important. In other words, if as an election in election you win far north, the Adamawa province, the littoral, and then the western province, you already won the election. This is not to say that we will not look for candidates in other regions, not at all. But that's how you do your mathematics.
Mr. Chairman, we have to understand that the region with the highest number of voters is the central region.
Yes.
Is the central region what Elekam does with 1.3 million voters.
Yes. Now
followed by the far north.
Yes.
After the far north, it is not the northern regions. It is the third region, the region with the third most populated number of voters, registered voters, is the littoral.
Yes, sir.
After the littoral, now we get to the north.
That's right.
After the north, you get to the west.
Absolutely.
Yes, before coming to the Adama. Yes, which means that you have the center with very high numbers, the far north with very high numbers, littoral, and the west very high numbers.
Indeed. So if you take the far north, in which we intend to compete very highly, because the president of CRM, of MSA, Mamadou Mouta, is going to be up there working. Then you have the littoral province is a given. You know, the only issue in the littoral province is whether there's going to be abstention or not. But the littoral province historically has always voted against CPDM, so we got that. We are unfortunate. I mean, the western province also is a region that is strongly anti-CPDM. You know, so the only reason why I'm bringing and then emphasizing the north and then the Adamawa province is because for the past
it comes a sixth.
Yes, but it's not Adamawa alone. I am taking Adamawa north and far north together. They make about 40% of the vote, and then for
they constitute only 26%.
Who's that?
26. These three regions.
These three regions constitute
26% of the votes. Yes,
they constitute 26% of the vote.
Yes, according to the because many persons were also very I don't know. You're alarmed to note that it is the central region that now comes first.
Yes,
and then far north, and then you come to littoral.
There's no problem. They can play with the numbers all they want. One thing that is happening is that when I listed those provinces, I listed them because those regions. I mean, I listed them because those are what I consider easy win. But now the battleground is the central region. There's no question about that. And then, you know, Yaoundé, of those 1.6, you know, that you talk about, Yaoundé has almost half of them. You know, so and then Yaoundé is a cosmopolitan city. Do you understand? So the battleground of this election will not be those 5 regions, because we've considered that we already get them. It is going to be the central region, and then that's why we even starting the campaign in Yaoundé, and then we intend to make sure that Yaoundé falls. There was in 1992, during the ghost town, there was a mistake, I would say, that the opposition made by leaving the capital city to Mr. Biya. But the capital city is the capital city of the entire country. It doesn't belong to any political party, nor to any particular ethnic group. It's the capital city, and then in any election, that when you're vying for the presidency, you must win that capital city and then go to Yaoundé. Now, I've been in Yaoundé more than ever before for the past 10 years. in the past, the past 2 months, and then I am telling you, the people of Yaoundé are tired of 43 years of going nowhere. Tired. Everybody, the people residing in Yaoundé, and then it has nothing to do with ethnicity. Everybody is tired, and then I think that we will carry the Fundi, and therefore carry the central region. Okay. In Monatele also we have a strong candidate that is going to be, that is in Monatele there, that's going to be working for the Leke region, which is the largest, one of the largest subdivision. Not to speak of the Nyon Ekele, that is a UPC a stronghold. There is no way Mr. Biya is going to win this time.
Okay. Good evening. All this, this man is saying, I like the talk very badly. I'm CPDM. I'm already convinced I will vote for the coalition party. I'm Patron Ambe, writing from Tico.
And then he's right. I don't want to pass on that because, this coalition is not a coalition against any side of Cameroonians. And then we invite Cameroonians that for one reason or the other, at John CPDM, I have a lot of friends that joined CPDM because they wanted to be mayor in the city, they wanted to help the people, and then in the calculation, given the rigging of the election, if they didn't go through the CPDM, they couldn't win. But this is the presidential election. This is the presidential election, and then Cameroonians have to take a decision. They look at themselves in the mirror and then say, if we continue like this, what will be my children tomorrow? What will I be? So like I say again, this will not be a partisan election. It is a referendum between one man that has ruled the country for 43 years, that has come in front of the Cameroonian, and then say, if he dares, that I've done so well that I want you to give some more years so that I'll be 50 years in power. And the Cameroonian people say, no, we want to give ourselves a chance for a better future because we're not happy with what we have. And it has nothing to do with political parties. Okay. People should not be tricked into getting into political rivalry, partisan rivalry. The presidential election is a political election, but it doesn't have to be partisan. All people from all parties should join this coalition so that we change Cameroon for the betterment of everyone.
Good evening, Macron Roland watching from Yaoundé. I like the program. Good evening to you, Roland, and to all of you watching us from the nation's political capital. Now, one issue with the election is money.
Yes.
Do you guys have money to run campaigns?
The Cameroonian people have money to run the campaign. We have this experience before in 1992, and people may say, oh, that's long history. But when the people take something in hand, then money comes out, because the Cameroonian people have money. The Cameroonian people are the one that pay the taxes that now the CPDM confiscates.
That I actually met, during the 8 p.m. news. When I met him, that's a big word. Let's put things into context, I shook hands with the President of the Republic. It's a story that lasts about 3 to 14 seconds, and everyone knows very well that on the occasion of these events, the President of the Republic is particularly prepared by his doctors, by his staff to allow him to hold on. So that's my observation, and that's where I think that some people were unfair. Marshall's friends thought that those 3 to 4 seconds meant that I had given him a certificate of fitness to govern.
Forever.
No, that's our debate. Other people thought that, and the others opposite them thought that it meant that I had given him a medical certificate of fitness to govern forever, and that therefore that's it. Now, I described it, and I'll say it again today, that wouldn't have been the case. I wouldn't have said it, I would never have said it, and he said it very well. I think he understood perfectly the meaning of my thoughts. When I arrived at the Unity Palace, like everyone else, Mr. Biya had been given up for dead a few months earlier. We didn't know where he was. He disappeared for a month and a half. We all saw him wandering around. Personally, as a lawyer, that is to say, as an actor in public life at my very small level, I sometimes have interactions. I think Calvin and I sometimes find ourselves in other discussions outside of here where we sometimes need arbitration and other things that don't come spontaneously. So when I go to the presidency, I admit that I personally want to form my own opinion of what the president of the republic might be like, etc. And when I see him arrive with all this decency, I tell myself, well, I'm definitely going to see a Mr. Valudinaire who's going to show up there and so on. And when I see him arrive on his 2 feet, greeting me, shaking my hand with a certain vigor, no, I didn't say a certain vigor.
Okay?
Who should even ask because? A certain vigor? Didn't you feel the man? I have a certain vigor. No, let's tell the truth in Cameroon. So, what is it? A certain vigor or a certain vigor? A certain vigor. Reread the message. It hasn't been deleted yet. It's still on Facebook. A certain vigor. If I shake hands with Marshall, so that I'll never have to tell you about it, the mere fact of having to bring up the issue of firmness, the president's hand, already means that, and that's why I'm telling you that he understood, already means that I had doubts at the beginning, and that I didn't expect to find this vigor. That's why I'm talking about the issue. That's why President Paul Biya has been winning since '82, because many people underestimate his ability to be the master of the game. Therefore,
I'm insisting on the question because
Marshall Bissek raised a point. Has your time at the Palais de l'Unité changed your perspective on things? Martial Bissek pointed out that you were part of that. That's it. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. That you were part of the Cameroonians who questioned the way the country was being run. Did your time at the Unity Palace change that? That's what
Mrs. R.O. spent about 2 hours at the Unity Palace. I've been living in Cameroon for about 20 years, and unfortunately the Unity Palace is not really Cameroon. Everyday life, the roads, the lack of electricity, the disastrous state of the hospitals, the particular context of insecurity that we are experiencing, the financial power, the capacity of our purchasing power, all these difficulties that are daily difficulties can in no way be offset by a 3 or 4 second handshake. And I believe that the President of the Republic, as vigorous as he may have been when we shook hands, must demonstrate in other acts of everyday life. It's not just the handshake he gave me at that moment, he must demonstrate every day that he is capable of ensuring our security, our daily lives for 20 million Cameroonians. So today, if you were to ask me what my ideal choice is for the country, for this country, despite my passage on May 20th, I would not want the current President of the Republic to continue his mission at the head of this country.
Is the gift of this 8 p.m. important? Double standards when a flagrant injustice stifles democracy? In Cameroon, arson and violence signed by the ruling party go unpunished while simple peaceful marches by the opposition end in forceful arrests and military trials. A blatant injustice that outrages public opinion and fuels a wave of rebellion in Magonga as in Gondare. The massive support for Babuoba Maigari is now akin to a cry of hope against arbitrariness. You are a certain genius to have understood your question because I do not see what impact the rule of law will have in any case, whether we are in an election period as is currently the case or outside of an election period. The rule of law refers to
a state where citizens also recognize themselves in the court decisions that are made.
A state in which the state, I mean the government, are themselves subject to the rules that they have imposed on themselves. That is normally what would have been discussed. But I think that Marshall would perhaps do better to first read his own columns that he used to write. What I wonder about is the before and after. I want to try to see what could have happened. We have the same people, the same actors, the same operating methods, and what once might have had a minimum of coherence has ended up falling into, I'll borrow his word, obsolescence. And where in all this is he going to find the reason to come today and supposedly judge favorably what he rightly criticized and condemned 15 or 16 years ago? We don't have the same presidents, we don't have the same prime ministers. If you want the only problem today, from my point of view, I think
we can say what we want about this team.
We can say what we want about Cameroonians as such.
We can't help but wonder what the government does with these Cameroonians, whether it's them who trained them or what nature, life, has ended up making available to them, regardless of the will of the state of Cameroon. The only thing we observe today is that through a certain number of behavioral patterns, nepotism, favoritism, clientelism and others, it is almost always the same people who continue to be found. That is to say, you will find in competitions, the organization of recruitments and so on, the same people who are found in these conditions. So when I am told that Cameroonians are geniuses, what has the genius of Cameroonians really been done? How has it been used? Where have we seen a concrete, dynamic policy that is put to the service of performance and success? Nowhere. That is why everything we can take here, in the end, whether it is the roads that we are describing, whether it is the hospitals and everything else, tends to end up going to waste, because you do not have a coherent policy put in place by people who are supposed to be there for that, to be able to bring together in a voluntary act, a voluntary perspective, all the qualities that are real, which badly remain scattered, because there is no one who really wants to be able to exploit them on behalf of Cameroon. So consequently, in terms of the rule of law, I do not know what it would be. We would always obviously like to have jurisdictions, whether it be the Constitutional Council or others, that would allow us to arbitrate everything, because the only thing we lack, here today, is social mobility. We need to establish social equality, and only the courts and tribunals can reassure everyone. And if we had courts, that's where your question is relevant. We had courts that would put everyone in their place, restate the law where it is. I think that would already be a form of democracy, and that the excesses that are sometimes the normal, natural result of power, especially when it's been exercised for 43 years, with all the excesses that it can lead to, would necessarily be corrected by the courts that would be there to do their job. Unfortunately, that's not the case today, which often leaves us a little in despair. Let's
take Dr. Jors. We never have a state that is there for its citizens, which gives the impression that when you're behind, you're in trouble and you're bound to pay a high price. You will also see that we have a Minister of Territorial Administration who spends his time threatening people. So, we have completely forgotten that the government is there to protect precisely, where you should normally have seen people mobilize. In order to be able to, I would have liked to have seen the state mobilize and say, look, on this major axis of Yaoundé, since we were unable to build a road that is a safe road, we will at least try to set up relay zones to provide assistance to people who could have accidents, to quickly clear the causes of blockages or other things that could themselves be accident-prone. No, the only thing when you see the state arrive, it is always through this minister, is to threaten you with words, formulas that are always shocking. I think that all of this ends up creating a psychosis among the people who end up thinking that the state is never there to read for them, it is always there only against them. That's a bit of that feeling. That's your question. This feeling of abandonment that we often have means that when someone is your adversary, we don't eliminate them. We don't try to eliminate them, that's it. I think that when you have chosen to confront someone you knew from the start, then for me, I think that purely out of elegance, that is, the good manners of people who know how to behave, you confront your adversary. That is, you confront them on the ground where you should normally do so. I think that this elegance has unfortunately been somewhat lacking from my point of view, but beyond that, there is the problem that the president of the bar poses to Karemouna himself. He knew he could have two angles of vision. You have the political angle and you have the legal or jurisdictional angle. We will quickly eliminate the legal aspect because I believe that the president of the bar himself, if you listen to him, did not really expect his request to succeed. And if you listen to his lawyer, depending on whether you are a feminist or not, at the end of the procedure, she herself told you beforehand that she did not expect the counsel to say anything other than what the counsel had said. So all the legal experts who had a basic understanding of this provision could already have prejudged what the counsel was going to say, and this time the counsel went in at least a direction that normal minds could understand, namely that the request could not be justified, and I think that the reasons for it are not justified. It is not justified because the provisions are relatively strict. I think we are still talking strictly on the ground of law. If you give me some time and if my fellow panelists allow me, I could perhaps say a few words about the other aspect. But I think that when you say someone has voluntarily placed themselves in a situation, words have a meaning, so I can perhaps start from the beginning. If you have consulted me, that is to say if we had a discussion among people, I already think that, first of all, the law did not want to mention the condition of age as a condition, one of the conditions provided for eligibility, which already means that it is open. In other words, you can be 40 years old and have Parkinson's disease and so on, which is normally a disease of the elderly, just as you can be 92 years old and be perfectly well. Garamun also specified that he was not talking about the age of the candidate. Everyone understood that when you say that a person is no longer able to take care of themselves and everything, there is a sibilant way here. For once, there was elegance of presentation, but we can clearly see that behind each statement, there is a reference to their weakness, that is to say, their vulnerability. And everyone knows that their vulnerability today is largely due to their age. So these are formulas in this area, so we did not take into account the concept of age. The text does not take into account the concept of age. Which therefore means that if a person were to find themselves under one of the physical, mental, or psychological dependencies that was due to their age, the law does not apply, since understandably, it would not be a situation in which the person had placed themselves voluntarily. You don't choose your age, you don't choose your illness. So from this point of view, I think that this aspect should, in my opinion, have been considered as being, not very effective in the case of Mr. Aarona's request. If we now look at the other aspect where he tells us that Ms. Bia is herself French, well, first of all, I have trouble seeing. We are not saying that if we were to put ourselves in a position where we are not talking about a person, an individual, we are talking about a state, and Ms. Bia, whether she is vigorous or vigorous, cannot by herself be an entire state, the state of France. So, I have trouble understanding here again, in the strict interpretation of the texts, the allusion made to the
delegation, because I think that the president of the bar also spoke about the permanent delegation of authority granted to the Minister of State and the GPR. Doesn't that fall into this category of dependency, ultimately?
You see that you are the one who is contradicting yourself, because the current Secretary General of the Presidency of the Republic has not discovered. He is not the first under the empire that we have. I tell you, the decree is exactly the same. I happen to intervene in another context on behalf of a former Secretary General of the Presidency of the Republic. You compare his decree with that of his predecessor and with the one who succeeded him. I tell you, it is exactly the same. He decided on the subjects that he submitted. I do not take myself on. Here, do not take what I tell you for an agent, take it in order. I think you must have had, what is his name again, who was in prison. Yes, there was Mbara before Mbara, you had Merafid, you had Mbara, I think you had after.
And then after that, so it is from the current one, simply take them and you look, you compare these formulas there. There is no change, none, okay. So if you can't tell me at the same time that it's not because of her age, because when he started under Marafa, he was at least 21 years old, his current age. There you go. And tell me today that no, it's because of this, it's solely on the basis of this decree which constitutes the legation of C. This decree is the same, and yet if it's not likely to be a problem for others in this area, it shouldn't logically be any more for Ngonga. Okay, so let's also eliminate that to be clear. Now, the case of Mrs. B, Mrs. Baya, is not the state of France, on the one hand, and then, on the other hand, I fear that here too there is a bad perception on the part of citizens, because women, and this is also something that lawyers should normally denounce. Those who have dual nationality know that normally the law should be the same for everyone. However, it is not the same depending on whether you are a man or a woman. This is one of the rare situations in this country where France has an advantage, where women have an advantage. That is one of the rare advantages, and I think that, in the case of women, on March 8th, rather than marching with the "Raise the Kaaba," you could occasionally raise this type of issue, so that there is maximum equality between men and women. But here, in this area, at least women have a slight advantage. And so a married woman, a woman of foreign nationality who marries a Cameroonian does not lose her nationality. If this is the case for example for France, which can allow you to have 4 or 5 nationalities, I am speaking here under the supervision of my colleague Job who once worked elsewhere, and we know very well that I have had clients in the past who could have 4 nationalities in France. It was not a problem. So for France, it is not a problem. On the other hand, Cameroon is not going to ask her to give up her French nationality. It could not, but Cameroon grants her the possibility of acquiring in the Cameroonian company. So even if Mrs. Baya was French at the beginning, she remained French in the eyes of French law, and Cameroonian law does not take that away from her. On the other hand, Cameroonian law grants her Cameroonian nationality, so that this argument that is raised also seems to me relatively easy to combat, to put before. Now on the political ground, I think that the problem arises 100,000 times, and perhaps we will come back to it later.
How does it arise?
Well, it arises because we do indeed have a president of the republic. I mean the other elements of the request of Maitre Akere Mona may not be justified on a legal level, but at least politically. We all see all the elements that he has developed as a whole, questioning, somewhat challenging, since we can clearly see that the President of the Republic, for example, to take only the time frame of the campaign, we have never seen him on any of the campaigns. I don't quite understand what you're saying, because in 2018 he still campaigned for 8 million people in the far north. Now, we're in 2025. Mrs. G, there you go. And I'm not sure that
The students of Enem, officer cadets, we don't see him. He hasn't launched yet. We don't see him anywhere. And then, well, there you go, Mrs. Gaz. I think what I like about coming on set is that I think you always preach a bit about. You try to be a bit of a liar, but everyone knows very well that there's a pre-campaign phase that involves all the players, and that is sometimes even much more important than the campaign itself, which is just an interval, a parenthesis within public life. So the pre-campaign phase. How can you ask people to come and see you at home? You, who invite them, don't even have the basic courtesy of going out, introducing yourself to the face of what you are hosting, and a simple formality that also speaks to the outside world, because what they do inside is intended to be seen outside. At no time, neither out of courtesy to the people you invite, nor to the world, to tell them that look, listen, you can say anything you want, but take a good look, how am I? There is none of that, and you tell me no. Since he campaigned, he said for 10 minutes in 2018 in Maroua that it covers all of his work until 2032. I find it hard to believe. So, Master.
Nous sommes déjà presque arrivés à la fin de cette édition spéciale, l'une des chaînes sociopolitiques. Alors, bienvenue donc pour la prochaine. Bam!